and welcome to Business Success in a Virtual World podcast, a resource of information for businesses to understand and embrace the innovative power of XR, VR, and AR. Each episode, we attempt to summarize what's new in this growing industry and highlight actual case studies of how these technologies are advancing success in business and enterprise. I'm Tim Beharon, Chairman of Creative Strategies, and each episode I'm joined by Barton Goldenberg, President of ISM Inc. Together, we help our listeners navigate the ever-growing mountain of information and technologies impacting virtual worlds, the metaverse, augmented reality, spatial computing, etc. In addition to all the information presented in each episode, additional information can be found on our resource website, in which you'll discover news, products, and most significantly, over 175 actual case studies of businesses utilizing these inventive technologies. That website is found at www.ismguide.com. The XR Metaverse resource link is on that site. There you'll discover field service examples, training, customer service, manufacturing, and much, much more. It's a fast-growing and complex area destined to impact your business. Let us help you figure out the best strategies. Now, on to the next episode. Welcome to our podcast on business success in the virtual world. If you've been following our podcast over the last couple of weeks, you will know that we have been sharing incredibly solid business cases, use cases of companies that are already using AR, VR, or some form of virtual technology in their business today. And it's been very surprising when we've actually looked at the fact that VR and AR is actively being used today and seen, over 150, 60 case studies that we have in our website. It's amazing how creative and innovative some of these companies are. So Barton today has a new one, Farmers Insurance, that is doing some really interesting things. And so Barton, tell us about this particular case study.
Well, thank you, Tim, and hello to everybody. By the way, Tim, I just want to tell you the number of use cases in the Metaverse Resource Center now exceeds 210.
Wow.
There are 210 companies that are actively, have documented what they're doing in terms of using AR or VR or XR or different types of technologies to be in the Metaverse successfully. Anyhow, this is one such company. It's the Farmers Insurance Group. And I actually feel that they have differentiated themselves from the pack, and they're leading the way in their application of VR and AR technology. So I'd like to tell you their story. Farmers Insurance was founded in 1928 in Los Angeles, California. Today it's the Farmers Insurance Group, but it's still informally called Farmers. It's an American insurer of vehicles and homes, small businesses, and related products. They have approximately 21,000 employees, and they sell their products through more than 48,000 exclusive and independent agents. Their parent is Zurich Insurance Group, which, as you may know, is among the top 10 publicly traded non-health global insurance companies. With revenues of about $11.8 billion, Farmer is the 10th largest property and casualty insurance company in the U.S. While not the largest, Farmers has separated themselves, as I alluded to, from the pack by being a leader in their use of VR and AR technologies. Here are two important use cases, Tim, that I want to talk about where Farmers is applying these technologies to drive, as you'll see, sales, service, and lower costs. So the first use case is VR for claim adjuster training. Being an insurance claim adjuster is not easy work. These individuals are in these positions. They need to deal with thousands of different scenarios that even the best trained and mentorship program cannot prepare them for. The old way of training adjusters was expensive, it was time consuming, it was labor intensive, it was neither scalable nor standardized. It included things like mentor or manager ride-alongs, or watching videos, or studying training materials, or renting or carving out dedicated office space to try to do some of these things. Fortunately, as experienced claims adjusters are about to retire, they're not necessarily available or even interested to mentor their replacements. So farmers saw this writing on the wall back in 2015 when they first looked at VR training for their claims adjusters, but they jumped into the game in 2017 and began using VR training for claims adjusters. They partnered with an external developer of enterprise XR solutions to create what they now call is a VR simulator. And what that does is it allows claim adjusters to practice assessing damage to homes or buildings and vehicles in a variety of different scenarios. The VR simulator is comprised of 6 different floor plans, more than 500 damage combinations, resulting in thousands of potential claim scenarios, which of course is to the benefit of the claims adjuster as they learn about different scenarios. By strapping on a VR headset, the trainee then is transported to a simulated home where they can see and assess potential damage like water leaks or fire wreckage. The trainee must do absolutely everything in the VR training environment that they do if they were actually in the client's home. So for example, if you felt there was a leak, to see the water on the bathroom floor, the trainee would literally get down on their knees with the headset on, bend down near the tub, and see exactly where the water is coming from. Now, part of what keeps trainees engaged is the gamification experience that's built into this VR simulator program. No surprise, gamification, a critical component of almost all successful VR, AR entries by companies that are doing business successfully in the virtual world. The gamification component in this case adds a fun aspect to engaging while learning at the same time. There's different settings in the VR training simulator that are based on the level of the claim adjuster's knowledge and expertise, which allows trainees to learn at their own pace, to pause in the middle of the training to rest, or for example, to ask their manager questions while they're actually doing the training. Now, what are the real benefits of this VR simulator that Farmers has created? I'm going to go through, I think, 5 of them. The first being virtual reality shortens the learning curve. Now, Farmers can train new adjusters and refresh existing adjusters in a matter of days and months instead of months and years. Speeding up a claims adjuster's readiness lowers the onboarding cost by a very substantial sum of money, and adjusters get to work sooner and with a higher level of confidence. So they can get them out in the field sooner with a higher level of confidence. A study that Farmers did internally found that the adjusters who completed the VR training were more confident in their ability to assess damage and make accurate assessments. They're also less likely to make mistakes. Now, this Farmers study was reinforced by a recent PricewaterhouseCoopers study where they found that VR learning is 4 times faster than traditional learning. So from months to weeks or from years to months. And VR learners were 275% more confident in their abilities versus learners who acquired the very same knowledge through more traditional approaches. Second benefit of the VR simulator. So VR is very scalable. If a VR headset is available to them, Farmers employees, remember there's 21,000 in the company, all over the country can be armed with thousands of immersive insurance claim scenarios. Adding a new VR headset or an additional claim scenario can be done easily and cost effectively. The third value or benefit of the VR simulator is the environment is safe and controlled. And in the insurance world, this is very important. Immersive scenarios in VR training allows employees to feel safe. If they're in a water-damaged building, or the house is burned down and there's smolders or wood that's hanging by a nail, There's no personal risk to exploring the damage in the VR world. Employees can also take off their headsets at any time to control the pace of training to make sure that they feel comfortable with what they're looking at and how they feel within this potentially risky environment. The fourth benefit of the VR simulator that I've identified is the employees actually like VR training and they learn more. This kind of fits with the bit about shortening the learning curve, but it's a little different. So VR trainees rate Farmers VR training 4.7 out of 5 stars. So there's something about it that they really like. They also claim they're 20% more accurate in their decisions versus the more traditional training methods. And lastly, the fifth reason I think that there's a fifth benefit to the VR simulator is the positive financial impact. So in addition to better claims adjusters, Farmers VR training program also saves the company hundreds of thousands of dollars per year in reduced travel costs to various training facilities. And the figure of hundreds of thousands was just in the first year when they measured it. Today, it's much more than that because they've rolled out the VR training program company-wide in a very big way. So if you think about what I've just said, the 5 benefits of the simulator, that you shorten the learning curve, VR is scalable, the environment is safe and controlled, employees actually like the training and they learn more, and you have a positive financial impact, it raises the obvious question: who wouldn't use VR training if you're an insurance company to help adjusters and other people learn the industry and learn their job? Okay, use case number 2 that Farmers is putting VR or AR training to, that is AR for customer service. Now, AR, of course, is a technology that superimposes a computer-generated image directly onto the user's view of the real world. So you have your AR glasses versus a headset, and you're being shown an overview of what's going on. You can see in front of you, but there's an overlay on your glasses themselves. Farmers is exploring the use of AR for customer service in several different ways. So for example, they're using augmented reality to help clients visualize their insurance policies. So a client could use an AR app to see a 3D rendering of their home, see how it would be affected by different types of damage. This could help the client understand their coverage better and also make informed decisions both about their insurance needs and what they might want to do to improve the safety of their home. Another example, Farmers is using AR, augmented reality, to help a client find and repair damage to their homes or their cars. In this scenario, a client would use the AR app to see a 3D rendering of their car or home and to identify potential damage. The app could then provide information about how to fix the damage that the owner could do themselves or bring it to an auto body shop or whatever it may be. A third and final example for using AR for customer service would be how Farmer is using AR virtual agents. So this agent, which we often refer to, if you will, more as an avatar, answers clients' questions and helps them with tasks such as filing a claim or changing their insurance information. So this can help clients get their problem solved more quickly and more easily. But once again, it substantially cuts down on the cost of having real-time agents handling what can be very simplistic scenarios that the virtual agent can easily handle. With 6 years of great experience performing claims adjuster VR training and applying AR for customer support, I'm of the belief that Farmers is really well poised for new and valuable AR, VR, and potentially other technologies that I'd like to share with you. So some examples, 4 of them. AR home inspection app. So now it's similar to a little bit what we touched on, but this app allows a client to see a 3D rendering of their home and identify potential hazards. And this then can help the owner improve the safety of their houses. A VR distracted driving simulator. So no surprise, this simulator allows users to experience the dangers of distracted driving, can help raise the awareness of the issue, and encourage people, particularly teens, to drive more safely. An AR claims process simulator. So this simulator can allow clients to experience the claims process from start to finish, thereby helping clients to understand what to expect and to make the whole process more understandable and easier for everybody involved. And the last example of that's something they're looking at is as I've alluded to a little bit, the VR avatar training. So these virtual humans put trainees through difficult client discussions and improve their ability to negotiate with challenging clients. Avatars teach things like leadership bias or performance management techniques, communication practice, customer experience training. And of interest, the trainee speaks directly with the avatar in the same way they might speak to a client. But the avatar, and they use artificial intelligence, is it designed to respond with both believable, emotional, and relevant reaction, but it also can disagree with the insurance agent and tell them why. And so it can open up a creative thought process of learning. While Farmers continues to lead in the innovation using VR and AR technologies, there are many other insurance companies also applying VR, AR creatively. I'd like to close today's case study, Tim, with one final augmented reality use case, namely AR for inspection and damage estimation. So let's use the example of a damaged building. Using AR, claims adjusters can remotely view the damage using a 3D photos of the building. They can put them all together to get a very clear understanding of the damage, and then they can overlay this 3D photos against the architectural model of the building that were created prior to the damage. So you have a before and an after. This allows the adjuster to better assess the damage and calculate required repair costs. Going a step further, using ultrasound technology and other related AR tools, inspectors can now literally look behind the building walls to determine, for example, the location of key gas or electrical lines to determine damages and ongoing risk. And for those of you that are following our podcast series, this should remind you of what Mayo Clinic is doing in their use of AR and some of the technologies where they can look through your skin, they can look through cells and various parts of your body to directly assess the damage to a bone, to determine whether in fact they should go in with a scalpel or a new tool and make a repair, or whether that's something they can treat a different way. So the same concept, being able to see through things using the technology, in this case, to locate key gas or electrical lines to determine damages and risk. I think it's a tremendously valuable application. So in closing, I see the insurance industry as an excellent breeding grounds, not only for the existing VR, AR applications, but also for new and creative VR and AR applications that quite frankly haven't yet been available in the market. These applications are being developed right now, for example, by Apple Vision Pro developers who were given their SDK kit back in July and are readying for a likely Q1 2024 launch. While the insurance industry is often seen, correctly, incorrectly, I'm not here to debate that, as conservative and slow moving, for an insurance company to remain competitive in the future, mastering these use cases and getting the VR AR strategy in place today is an absolute imperative. Back to you, Tim.
Barton, what strikes me about this is one, of course, Farmer's ability to think really far ahead and to integrate these new technologies, as you said, starting even in 2017. Can you imagine them watching the Apple keynote and seeing the Vision Pro and thinking, holy smoke, look what else we can do? And I'm hearing this right now by a lot of other industries who, after they saw what Apple's Vision Pro headset could do, they're rethinking how this could be used. And in this particular case with insurances, Apple's got these 15 cameras on it, and three of them, or I believe in front, are 3D cameras. And so you could, as a part of the training, go through a house and actually record all of the different elements of it that could then be pointed out in the training that shows literally, here's where the fire extinguisher needs to be, here's the problems with, the wiring, etc. This actually, to me, suggests that just to stay competitive, the insurance industry is going to have to be dealing with this VR question really quickly. Without that, I think companies like Farmers is going to expand their business and become even more proactive in taking care of their customers. And if I'm a insurance company at this point, and I'm not thinking about VR, I really need to get someone, behind me to say, this is something we've got to do. And I think from talking to some others in the insurance industry, that's top of mind at the moment. They are starting to think about it. But it's just fascinating that Farmers is so far ahead of everybody else.
It's interesting, Tim. When I did the research for the case study, I looked pretty hard. Looked pretty hard for the first I started with the largest companies, and I looked at what are they doing in VR, AR, any sort of metaverse technology, anything. And I got to tell you, the list was fairly short. There are others, no question about it. But Farmers, I think, and you already mentioned this, and I want to reinforce it. Farmers, I believe, at this point has a competitive advantage against some of the other companies because they're so far out in terms of using the tool set since 2017. And I think that gives them, 6 years lead on what is art of the possible. And I think that as I alluded to, any insurance company that wants to stay alive in the future, and you have to remember, this is very important. We talk about it all the time. Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and even Millennial have a very different buyer profile. Their expectations of how they buy is very different from other generations. If you want to sell to them, if you want to service them, you do that on their terms,
Yeah.
not your terms. And so if you're not in the game, you're not in the game.
Yeah, I think that's a good analysis. If you're really not in the game with VR and headsets, you're not going to be competitive. And that's why, for those of you who are listening, understanding the fact that VR and AR and XR to many companies is not new. They've already been playing with it and doing projects with it. And in this case, Farmers from 2017. And as we've shared with you over the last months or so, the 9 or 10 cases that we've already presented, and various industries, and those who are leading those industries with VR and AR, you can see that this is going to give them competitive edges. And I have to think that a lot of these other companies out there are scrambling at this moment to try to not only figure out what to do, but to figure out how to actually integrate it into their business models. And that's one of the things that both Barton and I have done and are working on with customers in general. Because when you actually do this, you need to build this on a solid foundation. You're not just a technology question. And as Barton has written in his books and others, it's people, process, and technology. It's all of that that has to be encompassed in building that. And that's why in some of the AR, VR projects that I've been looking at, they're too short-sighted. They're just going after it at the technology level. And while that's not a bad thing, because you'll learn a lot from it, you better build it on top of a foundation that includes people and the process in order to be successful.
I know you've always been very keen on that foundation, and it is so important. And yes, the technology will drive some of the results that I talked about. But if you haven't got the processes in place with the customer, in this case, the agents for the insurance company, or an internal understanding of how you work together with various risk assessors and engineers, it's not going to fly. And if
Yeah.
you haven't got the gamification inside there to make it fun and make people enjoy it, it's not going to fly. So you got to really think through the whole thing. I totally agree with you, Tim.
Yeah. Well, that wraps up our time with you today. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to our next podcast with you, where we'll have a whole new case study to share. Have a good week. For more information on this and other case studies, please check out the website www.ismguide.com and click the link for XR Metaverse Resource Center. We look forward to you joining us next time on another episode of Business Success in a Virtual World.